Hello, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Breaking Reality. I am your host, Joshua McGuire, and on today's episode, we have Beth with us, and we are going to be discussing the nomadic way of being. So, Beth, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can jump into the conversation.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me. I'm
Oh, thank you
excited
for
to,
being here.
yeah, excited to get to this after a couple months. So this
Yeah.
is this is exciting. Yeah, I'm Beth Zabiegalski. I use they them pronouns, and I am a transformational lifestyle coach. And my whole kind of spiel is that I help purpose-seeking professionals to build balanced and fulfilled lifestyles without necessarily having to quit your job or wait until retirement. And it's all kind of I always giggle when I say that because it sounds so stuffy to me, but people tend to like that, and it's almost like a backdoor into introducing people to things like connecting with nature and balancing themselves out and maybe even living in a tiny home, which is what I do with my partner and my cat. I travel around the country in our converted ambulance and have really relaxed into a lifestyle that flows with the seasons of change in the world and in my life. And it's come to a place for me where I always say, like, I feel like I am doing what I want to be doing, and like I could die today happy, and I want nothing more than that for every human. And so that's kind of my mission to lead people into a space where they can say that for themselves and really feel like they're fully living and embracing life. So
Right. And
it's
that
me.
and that's great. And honestly, I've been doing a year with Rumi series. I started it on the first, and so I do I read I don't even call them poems anymore because they're more wisdoms. They come from different, some of them are not poems, some of them are quotes and stuff. So
Right.
so I read a Rumi wisdom, and then I've got this amazing Rumi oracle deck that was gifted to me by one of my friends.
Yeah,
Um, and the cards are just gorgeous. The art on the cards and stuff
I love
is
that.
amazing.
Wow.
You can see some of it right there,
Yeah.
and some of what you just talked about being more present, being in the here, in the now, has been kind of the themes that's been coming through that already. And part of that is a little intentional on my part because I get to choose the first poem of the day, and then randomly the deck kind of comes through and kind of backs that up with what comes out through it. But
Right.
um,
Have you shared the guest house yet?
no, I have not.
That's probably the only poem of Rumi's that I know is Rumi's. I probably know a lot of other quotes, but like I'm bad at remembering who said
Right,
what. And because in addition to my private practice, I do emotional wellness coaching with Lyra Health, and that's one of the poems that I like to share with clients who are working on being with their emotions and recognizing, because it's a poem about just letting in the guests, letting in the unpleasant ones and the pleasant ones,
mm-hmm,
and letting them go as they please. And what would it be like if we didn't look at them as good or bad and just looked at them as guests in our house?
right. Rumi has such wise teachings and stuff. The He was just a really, really amazing man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, agreed.
but yeah,
Yeah,
but that's kind of like I said. One of the themes has been that being here in the now, in the present, and in the moment, and it whether you live in a tiny house or a big house, or you live in an apartment, or whatever you do, that doesn't matter as far as being in the moment. Now with what you do, you're kind of forced to be in the moment because you're constantly changing with where you're going and stuff, new places, you're on the go, you're traveling, and so you're constantly in the moment experiencing something new, something different.
Absolutely. And this is, I talk about it in a couple different ways, kind of what the experience is like living in a mobile tiny home. Um, One is that, like, this is just what works for us at this moment. It's
Right.
not particularly like a lifestyle choice forever, maybe, who knows, but like this is what works right now. And sometimes we'll park at friends and family's house, and um they'll always invite us in. I wrote them like a little poem to address the frequently asked questions, like, no, I don't want to sleep inside, I like my house, and we have a shower, don't worry, like, you don't need to serve us, we'll just stay here. But sometimes when we're doing remodeling, we'll like sleep inside my parents' house. We'll
Right.
work on the truck, it's torn up, and we sleep inside. And I notice the more that I'm in a house where there's like running water and endless electricity, the less connected I feel and the less gratitude I feel for those things, because it is harder being on the road and like having to refill my water tank or make sure that the solar power is full and plug in when I need to.
Right.
But I think that really creates an attitude of like consciousness and intentionality that for me is really valuable, and what makes me feel connected and grateful to the earth
Well,
and
yeah, I mean, it's like things like water and power in a house like what I live in is you're just like you expect it to be there. And
yeah,
then when it isn't, you're like, okay, got to call someone to get this fixed right now.
right.
Yeah, but like you just expect it to be there. When you get up in the morning, you're not like, oh crap, did I get everything charged up right?
Hmm.
Is there enough water to take a shower this morning? What, you know, just the basics.
Yeah,
And I imagine in some areas, things like water might be a little tricky to grab here and there.
here and there. Yeah,
Yeah, or
there's
or
some
just
apps out there.
stupidly pricey.
Sometimes, yes. We've been really fortunate. I think we've paid for a water fill up one time. Most places that we find on these awesome apps that they have for van lifers, you can just pull up and fill up at random water places. We've even like found a little key that we can turn at the park once. Like,
Nice.
we get resourceful. So yeah, it's fun, and some people are like, ew, I could never do that, especially when it comes to like our composting toilet, where we're like very aware of how much waste we're producing. Like, we
Right.
have to empty it. It doesn't just go away. And so it's sure maybe a little bit like ew, gross, but it makes things so,
You're much more aware.
yeah, it's like the rawness of our humanity is right in our face. Like, we can't deny what we need, and what, like, what we produce, or what our footprint is, I suppose. Like, our
Right.
footprint's smaller this way too, which is awesome. But yeah, the rawness of our humanity is right there. We can't get away from it.
Right. And it
And
probably makes you much more conscious on what you take in. So you're taking in things that you can optimize best so you're putting out less.
yeah, yeah, we've been in a constant process of like, okay, what where do we recycle? What can we compost, and can we hold that? And like, what can we buy to have the least amount of trash? Because our trash bag is like, you ever seen those little like kitchen sized ones that like hang on the inside of a shelf,
Yeah.
or on the inside of a cabinet? That's what
Yeah.
we have with for our trash, with like a grocery bag in there.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Uh,
we don't want to be creating a lot of trash,
right.
and yeah, so we have a lot more focus on what we're consuming also. Yeah.
Right. And like I know a lot of people like a lot of areas I lived in out especially out in California and stuff. This was more popular was like the co-ops going into a co-op and you take in your own containers and weigh and fill your own container, or they'll have a container there that you buy that's the co-op container that you take in and refill. so that you have those reusable containers for storing things, like beans, rice, stuff like
Right.
that, your dry staples and stuff that don't need to be in
Yeah.
cold storage or anything like that, that they're in a container that you just refill. That way you're not buying like, bags of rice and throwing them up in a cabinet. You've got rice in a jar.
Yeah. Yeah. We did that oddly before COVID when we had an apartment, but we haven't for a while because the grocery store we went to got rid of their bulk section during COVID. So that was unfortunate because you can't like reach in.
Right, right.
I think it's back, so we really should restart, but we have not done that. So thanks for reminding me. We'll have to get to that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually enjoyed that when I lived in an area where that was available. Like, it's not available around where I live right now. Like, I would literally have to drive like an hour and a half or so to get to, and passing many, many other good places to get stuff.
Yeah,
It's just I can't get it in that form.
true.
I can't order online in bulk though. A lot of
True.
stuff. So there is that option of ordering and having bulk stuff delivered and then putting it into your own jars. You're still creating some waste, but if you're buying in bulk, at least you're not buying a bunch of small packages and stuff.
Yeah, it's less for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah, and it depends where you are to get that, and if they do bulk. We're sitting as I'm talking to you. We're parked in a Walmart parking lot where we will sleep tonight. So that's one of the locations before we head out to the desert for the week.
Nice.
My cat has a vet appointment tomorrow, so we're in town, and then we're gonna go out to the desert, uh, camp out there with
Nice.
our hotspot that makes internet fairly like this pretty seamless. It's pretty awesome. The
Yeah.
stuff.
There's not like really any issues with the internet and stuff as far as, and that's usually like I know people who's been in like staying at a hotel and recording and the internet's crap.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean it's
Yeah.
horrible.
I sought out this particular hotspot router
Nice,
or Wi-Fi router, whatever it is. Yeah. AT&T is terrible. Verizon's been awesome. So just
nice,
if anybody's one.
nice, nice. So,
Yeah.
what else about this has, I mean, really changed in the way that you do your job or you work with people and just your own personal path and journey as well?
Yeah. Well, as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about for this, and we came up with the nomadic way of being, kind of shifting with change and moving around in a tiny home. This also ties in on a lot of levels what I do and how I relate to my own surroundings. Um, Namely, if we want to get real simple, is just like flowing with change because. As it's said, that's the only thing that's constant. Hello, buddy. Oh
Yeah,
my
this is
goodness.
Tanner. He was insistent that I pick him up.
Hi, Tanner. Cute. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so flowing with change because we all, I think really what I hear from clients is we all simply want to have ease and joy in our lives. Like no matter what your goals are, that's the root of it. We want things to be easeful, we want to be happy, and we're taught in this society that the way we get that is like striving and making more money and grinding and hustling
Right.
and just going after things single-mindedly, and in that is all wrapped up in like there's other things wrapped up like this hyper focus on productivity and
Well,
thinking that we can't rest.
it's that consumerism mentality is what it is. It's
Yeah.
got to produce, got to purchase. You know, the more you
Yeah.
have, the better off you are. The more, the bigger, the better. You know, the
Yeah, like you got to be
this.
the best also in your area.
Yeah, it's all status symbols and stuff. Is
Competition.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And So that's really like that creates a lot of stress and pressure, and that's the opposite of ease and joy.
Yeah.
That's not that's not what people are going for, and yet they think that's how they get there, because there's like this picture of balance way down the road, that if they do all these things they're going to somehow get there, but meanwhile they're training themselves to live in this hamster wheel, so they're never actually, they're just going to keep
Right.
having this picture down the road. So why don't we like bring it into the moment? And the only way to do that is to, well, two ways to say this. One, the only way to do that is to get comfortable with being where we are, and where we are is scary because we can't, like, the movement forward and the focus on consumerism and producing kind of ignores the current state, which is always changing and not linear and not always productive. There's rest involved when we look at the seasons of the natural world and moon cycles. There's always a period of rest and darkness and
Mm-hmm.
slowness, and sometimes that's where we are. And so, like, really bringing to get to ease and joy in the moment, we have to be able to sit with all of those points in the cycle
Right.
and slow down and be uncomfortable sometimes in that, until they're not so uncomfortable anymore. But it always is at first. So I enjoy giving my clients kind of crises of character when they're like, well, I want to achieve XYZ. And I'm like, why is that important to you? And where's that motivation coming from? And they start recognizing the socialization of it and the consumeristic motivators. And yeah, and that's where I meet a lot of people, is in kind of a crisis of, what even am I doing in life?
Right. Right.
And how
And
does my career fit in? Like, how I've been pursuing all of this. Yeah. So it's like a big thing in a very simple way of just accepting that we are always only in this moment, and this moment is ever changing and shifting.
oh yeah, I mean, it's people got to realize the moment's like a river. You can stand in the river and it's going to constantly flow past you. And it's the same way with time. That moment is already gone and the next moment is already here.
Uh, I love that you said river, because that's the metaphor I use and the visualization I use with clients too. Like when we're working on accepting, like, let's picture sitting in a river and watch the current float by, and like picture it passing through our hands. And that's exactly what I use. That's funny that you used that as an example.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think water's just a perfect example for that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and the flowing of a creek or a river is a perfect example. I grew up country. I grew up in creeks and rivers and stuff. So, you
Yeah.
know, I'm used to that.
Yeah. And as water flows, it slowly erodes. Like, and that is kind of the process of transformation that we've,
Oh yeah,
like, slowly just following intuition, following where you are, and watching the incremental changes that happen intentionally.
yeah, and you know, funny enough, along that same path, change like erosion happens a lot of times subtly over time. You just you'll read something new here and you'll start thinking on it, and then that might shift your thinking just, you know, a degree or two, and then something else comes down the road, or someone says something, or you know, you have an experience, and the way that you see things and the way that you think and the way that you reacted to things has slowly started to change, just like the erosion of you know, the rock in the river, and it's become something new, and
Exactly.
that's what happens to you as well.
Yeah, precisely. I always say change is not like driving a sports car. We're not turning on a dime. It's like driving a cruise ship. You gotta just incrementally shift, and eventually, after time, you found your head in a completely different direction. But it's not. Everybody thinks they're just gonna like wake up on January 1st and
Oh yeah.
be a new person, when that, it takes work, it takes steps.
That's why New Year's resolutions always crack me up. People's like making these New Year's resolutions and stuff. And it's funny because no one talks about what their New Year's resolution is going to be in like July. It's always like
Right.
the last week of December. It's like my New Year's
Yeah.
resolution is going to be, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. You've made this decision just so you can say that you had a New Year's resolution for the year coming up, and you might hold on to this for a couple days or maybe even a couple of weeks, but then you're not going to be getting what you expected as results right away, and you're going to burn out and you're going to stop doing it. And instead of making a resolution, just decide that you're going to start slowly, subtly making changes.
Hmm.
You know, it's like I need to lose some weight for surgery, and so I've been making, instead of doing like a drastic, total 180 diet change, I've been doing small, subtle changes so that it's easier to adapt to. And
Yeah.
while it's not like the drastic weight loss that you might see if you do like a really drastic one of those shock diets,
Yeah.
it's gonna be long term versus
Right.
something that comes off and then comes all back on later.
Yeah.
And
It sounds like a healthier way to do it too.
it
Because the
is,
shock diets are not.
yeah, and it is, and also in the process, it's shifting patterns and habits as well. And so it's something that's going to last. It's going to establish a healthier patterns and habits, and so that's better for the long run. So
Right.
if it takes a little longer, but it's going to work out better in the long run, it
Yeah.
goes to that the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even as you say that, like it sounds like there's something more in it in changing these behaviors than just about the weight loss for the surgery. Like you want something long term. It's not about like let's just do it
Oh,
for
I
the
mean,
sake of.
it's long term just for more than the surgery too. I mean, it's a better health, it's a better
Yeah.
attitude, it's a better way of being.
Right.
It puts me in a better health to be able to go out and do more.
Yeah.
And so it's honestly a total complete life changing ordeal to go from and I I deal with a lot of chronic pain, but if I'm dealing with less weight while also dealing with chronic pain, it's going to be easier to handle.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So I feel like that's a difference between like a resolution, exactly what we're talking about, and the difference between a resolution and actual change,
Right.
and how I kind of like to guide clients through thinking about what they're setting out to do, because it's one thing to say, "Oh, I'm going to quit my job this year." But like, so what's that going to give you once you do? Like what's beyond that, and what you need to maintain throughout that whole process? Because like if you were to just lose weight for the surgery, you wouldn't have what you want with the like healthier lifestyle, management of chronic pain, all of that
Right.
after.
And then if I do put the weight back on after the surgery, there's still chances that that can cause complications with the surgery
Mm-hmm.
as well. So, I mean, it's just overall taking things to a better level health-wise overall.
Yeah.
And so that's really what it is. And it's honestly, in part of it, it's releasing some habits and stuff that was built up out of past traumas that were built up
Mm-hmm.
as trauma patterns and habits, and using things like snacks and food as a way to deal with trauma and pain, and
Yeah.
then that became a habit. It just became a pattern to eat that way. And
Right.
so now part of getting healthy is also not just dealing with those traumas, but dealing with the patterns that you adapted and started using the the ones that you adopt it because of those, and getting rid of those too.
Yeah. Yeah, your approach sounds very holistic.
Well, I mean that's how I try to go at it, and I just I've
Yeah.
had doctors come at me, and they've offered me different kind of medications to help with weight loss and stuff, and like all they are is speed. It's just they're wanting to give me just basically meth. They're all amphetamines,
Oh,
and I'm just like no, no.
thank you.
Like what one of them had a side effect of you may not be able to talk or walk.
No, thank you.
I'm just like, yeah, no, no.
No.
Uh,
I'll
there,
take the more healing and holistic approach.
I'd rather stay fat than not be. At least I can talk and walk now. I'd rather stay fat and be
Yeah.
able to talk and walk, than take
Yeah.
your pill and potentially, lose major functions.
Right. Exactly. Ugh.
Yeah, I honestly despise most medications and pharmaceuticals and stuff. Like I try to stay
Yes.
away from them as much as possible. There's some stuff I have to use because what the surgery's for is an abdominal hernia, and so I've got to get
Right.
that fixed. And so there's times where I have to go to the hospital where it's out and I can't get it to reduce back in, and it's causing pain that they have to give
Yeah.
me pain medication and they have to give me nausea medication, and then they can finally get it back in place, and then I'm
Oh,
good to go. But
okay.
if I can avoid taking pills, I do. Even
Yeah.
if it means something taking longer, I'd rather it take longer and do right than use something like that.
Yeah. Especially when you've got all these awesome natural, I was going to call it natural medication, I guess, natural supplements to
Yeah,
help. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
can't call them medications, or the FDA gets all mad.
Yeah. Oh, I guess that's true, huh? What do you call them?
Uh,
Natural.
they're nutritional
Okay.
supplements.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's funny.
yeah. We know who makes the
Anyway, yeah.
real. We know who makes the real
Transformation.
drugs.
Yeah. So, yeah, transformation. I mean, you're really talking about it being not just about the pattern of behavior, but the whole trauma response behind it. And um, so it's really like a mental health journey as well as, and I think that's true of any goal or any real change people want to make that hasn't been possible before. There's something in the way, and it's usually something like trauma based or a really deeply ingrained learned behavior.
Right. So something that
Yeah.
is a mental hang up that's got to be addressed some way, somehow, some shape, some form.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's important that we look back not at just dealing like say with a trauma response or an ingrained response like that. As far as changing the way we think or we feel, and we respond on an emotional, mental, and psychological level with that, but also the actual actions that
Yes.
caused us to take and stuff. So learned behaviors because of those responses are things that we need to learn to address as well.
Yeah. Yeah. In at Lyra as an emotional wellness coach, we do cognitive behavioral coaching. And that's where like we really break down with clients what's the difference between what you're feeling, which you can't help, and what you're thinking and the emotional urges that come along, and where can we disrupt the immediate trigger between the emotion and the action, so
Right.
that you can see the whole system in its process and choose what you're going to do based on your values instead, what's truly important to you.
Right.
Sometimes those patterns might serve and sometimes they don't. Like we don't go into it looking at them like this is good or this is bad. It's like this is the pattern. When do you want this to be showing up, and when
Right.
should you maybe choose something else. Yeah. But I feel like, yeah, I have two very different, well, I was going to say I have two very different ways of working with clients, and that's completely like different than the lifestyle design I do. However, that's a really like fundamental piece of it in moving people through change. So I won't separate them completely. Yeah. 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 Any other places you feel like I didn't go, or should I? I know I didn't like tell my own story of.
By all means, tell your own story. What led you? Here's the question that everyone's probably wondering. What led you to live in a converted ambulance and travel across country? I mean, we talked about kind of living in the moment, in the here and the now, but there's got to
Yeah.
be like some catalyst that kicked this off. This you just don't wake
Yeah.
up one day and go, "Hey, I got an idea,"
Right.
or maybe you
And
do.
yeah. No, well, no, not exactly. And in that, like, I actually, what just came up as you were saying this is like, oh, my story is a story of the slow incremental transformation that I made, because I'm always like, my story isn't like something terrible happened to me and I decided to change. My story was like a process of listening to myself and making small changes. And um, it's kind of a saga, but I've told it a lot, so I can go through it pretty efficiently. But I went to school for communication. I have a degree in journalism, and I do not use, well, I mean, it was a good foundation, I suppose, but I came out of school and started working in nonprofit marketing, which marketing is not the same thing as public relations, which is what my degree was in, but nonprofit people seemed to not know that. And so I had a lot of different marketing type jobs and like fundraising and things. I never actually did public relations, but I think within 3 years of graduating, I had 5 different full-time jobs,
Oh wow.
because yeah, I kept going like, oh, this isn't right. Maybe I just need to work for a different company. And I'd like just jump around and I'd be like, no, 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 no. And I landed finally at the United Way, which was like, as a marketing manager, which I was like, this is the status that I need to climb the ladder, and like a big company that this is going to look so good and I'm going to get to where I want to. I didn't even have an idea of where I wanted to be. So I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, this is on the way to the right place.
This is a stepping
And
stone.
this is it. And my boss warned me in the interview that it was going to be like drinking from a fire hose. But in my previous job, I was like doing 5 different roles for the very small nonprofit, and this one only required me to do like 1 or 2 things. And I was like, this is going to be cake. But it was drinking from a fire hose times like 3. And I cried every day for 6 months as my partner would drop me off in front of the building to go to work.
Oh no.
I know. And I kind of hardened
That had
after
to
a
be
while.
heart wrenching for your partner too.
Yeah, he wasn't having a great time either. but but he did not acknowledge it for some time. He actually just came off of an 8-month self-given sabbatical, so he's since come through. But back to this time was I think that was really the realization that I needed to start really examining where I was and what I actually wanted. And so we did the books like Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans and Immunity to Change, and started working through what we actually wanted. And I realized, we went on our honeymoon to the Poconos in Pennsylvania and did a bunch of outdoor activities, which I love. I grew up doing outdoor stuff and like being a camp counselor, and
Right.
I saw these people like leading whitewater rafting trips, and the uh, Go Ape, like treetop,
Oh, like the high ropes courses?
or yeah, like high rope stuff. And I
Yeah.
was like,
I
how
done
do
that
you
I done that stuff in
do
my
this?
teens.
Yeah, yeah. it's a fun time. But I was like, how do you guys have this as a job? Like, I want to do this. I always wanted to do this. I never even thought of this. And I am a hiking guide on the side. I haven't mentioned that. I do lots of things. But yeah, so I started like taking courses about like wilderness medicine and navigation and all kinds of things like that, and then applied to work as a trip leader for a nonprofit in Pittsburgh that I got to like take kids outside in the local schools and teach them how to kayak and fish and bike and things like that. So that was my first move, and it was a part-time job, and I kind of pieced it together. I worked at Starbucks, I drove for Lyft, I contracted with my old job until they found someone new. Blech, I don't like that I did that, but it was good money for that. And I was so much busier, like with all those part-time jobs, but I loved it.
Right.
And
You had
I
more
felt
fulfillment with it.
yeah, I had chosen this. Like
Right.
I picked that. And yet, like as I was leaving, I was justifying it to everyone, like, oh, don't worry, like Starbucks has a 401k and even for part-time employees, and I'm still going to be an adult. Don't worry. I don't do that anymore. I do not justify things like that anymore. I'm going to do what I want to do. But that then after like I had freed up that part of me that was feeling so stuck in career.
Right.
My partner and I started to talk about other things that were important to us. Like that's when we started values planning as a family and talking about what's important to us and how do we want to get there. And my family lives in Pennsylvania. That's where I grew up. His family lives in Arizona, where we are now. And we hardly ever saw them. And he really missed being with them. And we were like, okay, how do we make something happen where we can be in both places across the country? And we threw out ideas, and he didn't like the idea of living in an RV park because I was like, RVs, like, yeah, I've heard of other people do that. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm still here. Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, your picture's gone. But
Oh, it's up on my side. It might just be your internet or something.
okay, maybe. So one day I just threw out the idea, like, hey, do you want to try to move to Arizona in the winter and be in Pennsylvania in the summer, and we can find remote jobs? And he was like, yeah. And it just kind of clicked into place, like this is actually something we both would like to do. And so over the next year we sold our house that we owned. We had like a house in the suburbs. That part I don't understand still, but we had we sold it.
You look so baffled when you said that.
Yeah, like who was that person? I
Like
don't know.
the look on your face was just total just bafflement, just like I don't understand this house in the suburbs. It confuses me.
No, I had it in my mind like this was the order of life. Like we graduate college, we get married, and I pressured that too. And we get married and we buy a house, and thank goodness we didn't move on to kids yet because this wouldn't be possible. But or it could be. It's just harder. People do it. Um,
I
and
mean,
so
think about the education for the kids though, getting able to see everything and learn
no,
firsthand about the different like. Yeah, it's one thing to sit there in a book and read about like all these different landmarks and stuff in the country and where all these things happen, but then to actually get out there and see them
I agree.
is a total complete different thing. Like, I remember reading about like Donner Pass and like up through Tahoe and like traveling up through the mountains and stuff. Yet until I made that travel in the winter, I didn't realize how incredibly crazily stupid that was.
Yeah, why did you do that?
We were actually moving and we were trying to beat a storm, and we literally was going through the mountains as the storm was moving in.
Oh no.
Oh, it was horrible. We didn't get into the worst of it though. We got through before the worst of it hit, but like we was literally driving right through Tahoe and Donner Pass and stuff going into California. From I moved from Ohio to California with my ex-wife, and yeah, we drove a U-Haul right through there. It was, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it.
But now I understand the perils of that trip and journey they made.
Right.
And
Yes.
it's beautiful area. Like, oh my god, like Lake Tahoe. Oh, so beautiful.
I haven't
Like
been.
like just the ability to get to see some of the stuff like that, like what you would get traveling and journeying around and stuff. It's just, you know, it, it's a gorgeous experience to go around to some of these different places and see them and stuff. And
Yeah.
I know people who are like, oh, I saw it on TV. Seeing it on TV's no, no, no. Until you actually stand there and you can just
Yeah.
take in the air and everything around you and stuff,
Oh
especially
yeah.
like up in Tahoe with the mountain lake up in the mountains and everything. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. I want to go. My partner's going to go in a couple weeks for a bachelor party
You should
in January.
you should demand you guys drive up.
I think he's going to fly and then drive from the airport. I'm not going.
Oh, you should
Yeah.
you should really sneak along with.
I think I'm going to be coming back from LA at that time. I'm flying to LA next weekend and then he's going to fly to Tahoe and I'm not sure if we're going to overlap. But yeah, yeah, I do need to see it. I'd rather not see it in the winter. I'd rather see it in the summer. But
It's I've been through both times of the year, and it's gorgeous both time of the year.
I'll
I
bet.
mean, winter it's just it makes you nervous because like you're literally driving on an ice pack.
Yeah, that's why I don't want to
Yeah,
go.
they can't plow the roads. It's an ice pack,
Oh God.
and you have to have chains.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you
Good to know.
do not go up there in the winter without chains. There if there is snow at all, you're going to want your chains on.
Okay.
Actually, I think there's even areas where like they check and make sure you have chains.
Yeah, good. Okay, I'll have to give him a heads up.
Yeah.
That's good. Hmm.
If he gets a rental car, they should. If he tells them he's going up to Tahoe, they should include chains with it.
Yeah, I hope so. Oh, that's scary. Okay. I'm like having a little stress response about, okay, he's gonna go drive in the snow up in the.
People go up there all the time, though. I mean, all the time, and they're safe.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of getting a hotel with a shuttle too, they got like a house with they have to drive to where they're going every day.
A lot of people will get the houses and stuff up there. Yeah, he's in the background. Occasionally, you'll catch him in the background playing with one of his toys or doing whatever.
Yeah,
I,
that's too fun.
I used to do the show out in my front room, and so you would see him like running around behind me the whole time, like doing
Fun.
all kinds of stuff. It's part of moving in here was to keep that from happening because it was distracting me during the show. Because I would catch it in the camera, and then I'm sitting there laughing half of the show because I'm laughing at him being goofy running around in the background.
It's understandable. My
Yeah.
cat is sleeping. If it was closer to mealtime, he'd be walking on me and trying to get me to feed him.
He keeps clawing and stuff at me and pawing at me. He's wanting me to. He wants me to hold him. He wants me to hold him constantly, like he's a little baby. He's 11 years
Precious.
old. He's 11 years old. He's been like this ever since I got him.
I love that.
Yeah, he's definitely a lap dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. But is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap things up?
Hmm. Anything else I want to cover? I don't think so. I think that's
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for your time and being here with us and sharing your story. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
You are welcome. And if you ever want to come back on and talk about anything else you guys have going on, you're welcome to.
All right, we'll do.
All right. Well, thank you for being here, and we will see you guys on the next episode of Breaking Reality. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you later.